Welcome to the deep dive.
Mm.
Today we're going to be tackling willpower,
Ooh.
which I think we could all use a little more of, right?
Right.
So we've got some excerpts today from Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength
Okay.
by Roy F. Baumeister and John Tierney.
Wow.
And it's really a fascinating look at the science behind willpower and how we can actually train it for a more successful and fulfilling life.
It's amazing how much it really impacts our lives.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about like saying no to that extra dessert. It's like
yeah.
the driving force behind so many of our decisions,
Right.
from like financial choices to even how we interact with others.
Yeah, that's what I found so interesting about this book is the sheer scope
Yeah.
of willpower's influence.
It's huge.
Like this concept of ego depletion,
Yeah.
which I had heard of but never really grasped until now.
Right.
It's like we have a limited energy reserve for willpower.
Yeah.
And every decision we make, every temptation we resist, drains that reserve.
And what's interesting is that research shows that even like seemingly small acts of self-control can deplete that reserve.
Really?
Like they talk about this experiment in the book where some people had to resist eating delicious cookies
I know.
while others got to indulge.
Okay.
And later, when given a challenging task, those who had resisted the cookies actually performed worse. They'd use up their willpower on something that seemed pretty minor.
It makes you wonder how many times we make like less than ideal choices.
Right.
Simply because we've already exhausted our willpower
Exactly.
on earlier decision.
Yeah.
And you think about it, those decisions can be anything from resisting that impulse purchase
Right.
to forcing ourselves to go to the gym when we'd rather stay on the couch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also brings up the question of how we can become more aware
Right.
of our willpower reserves.
Yeah,
And find ways to replenish them.
for sure.
The book dives into some fascinating strategies like monitoring our behavior, which is something that really resonated with me.
Yeah, that idea of what gets measured gets managed.
Oh,
right.
exactly.
They talk about Aaron Patzer, the founder of Mint.com,
Oh, yeah.
who essentially wanted to outsource the mental effort of tracking his finances.
Right.
And that's what sparked the whole idea for Mint.com.
Makes sense.
A way to monitor finances, automatically freeing up willpower for other things.
And it's not just about finances. You think about all the tools we have now for monitoring our behavior.
Right.
Fitness trackers, sleep apps,
Yeah.
even screen time reports on our phones.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about raising self-awareness and helping us to make more conscious choices.
Right. It's not just about the data. It's about understanding our own patterns and behaviors.
Exactly.
Have you ever used a fitness tracker?
Oh, for sure.
I know I have. And just seeing that data can be surprisingly motivating.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I only walked 5,000 steps yesterday. Maybe I should aim for 7,000 today.
And what's interesting is the book also highlights the potential benefits of comparing ourselves to others. Now, I know that can be a slippery slope,
Right.
but when done thoughtfully, it can be a powerful motivator.
Okay.
They even cite research showing that people who compared their energy usage to their neighbors actually ended up using less electricity.
Wow.
It's almost like a little social nudge toward better behavior.
It's amazing how much our social environment can influence our choices.
It really is.
We're always picking up cues from those around us, consciously or unconsciously?
Absolutely.
But it's not just about monitoring, is it?
Right.
The book goes deeper and actually explores how we can actively train our willpower,
Yeah.
almost like building a muscle.
That's where it gets really exciting.
Right.
It's not about simply enduring temptation.
Yeah.
It's about actively strengthening our capacity for self-control.
Okay.
Think of it like this. The more we practice making conscious choices, the stronger those willpower muscles become.
So it's not about being superhuman.
Right.
It's about building that resilience over time. And they give some pretty interesting examples of willpower exercises.
Yeah.
Like, did you know that something as simple as improving your posture
Oh, yeah.
can actually strengthen your willpower?
That one surprised me, too.
Right.
It seems like these seemingly small acts of discipline actually have a ripple effect, building up our overall capacity for self-control.
Yeah.
They even talk about using your non-dominant hand
Oh,
for everyday tasks as a way to strengthen willpower.
okay.
It's about consciously choosing to do things that require effort and focus.
Like giving our brains a little willpower workout.
Yeah.
What I love about this is that it makes willpower seem less like this mystical force
Right.
and more like a skill we can all develop with practice.
Absolutely.
I'm really curious to hear about some of the other strategies they discuss in the book.
Yeah, me too. One of the most effective ways to conserve willpower is by establishing good habits. The less we have to rely on moment-to-moment willpower, the better equipped we are to handle those unexpected challenges.
It's like automating our good behavior.
Exactly.
So we're not constantly battling those internal demons.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that example from the book about Henry Morton Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
The explorer.
Right.
He had these incredibly rigorous daily routines.
Right.
That helped him endure those brutal conditions in Africa.
Exactly. Stanley's commitment to routine,
Yeah.
no matter how difficult things got, shows just how crucial habits are in sustaining willpower over the long haul.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect every day. It's about establishing those consistent actions that become almost second nature.
And when you think about it, so much of our lives is already governed by habits.
Absolutely.
Both good and bad.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that if we can consciously cultivate those positive habits,
Right.
we're essentially setting ourselves up for willpower success.
Yeah.
But how do we go about actually building those habits?
Well, the book dives into some really practical strategies for habit formation.
Okay.
They talk about identifying our triggers, creating new routines, and even using rewards to reinforce those positive behaviors.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating blend of psychology and practical advice.
It reminds me of that concept they discuss about self-forgetfulness.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like a mental hack for boosting willpower.
Yeah, exactly.
The idea is that by focusing on tasks that fully engage us, we can escape those negative thoughts and anxieties that often deplete our self-control.
That's a great connection. It's like finding those activities that make you lose track of time.
Yeah.
Where you're so absorbed that you're not even thinking about resisting temptation.
Right.
Think about what makes you feel that way. Those moments when you're completely in the zone.
Right.
Those activities could be key to unlocking greater willpower.
I love that.
Yeah.
It makes willpower seem less about gritting our teeth and more about finding those activities that naturally energize and engage us.
Exactly.
But the book also delves into the power of belief and purpose in strengthening self-control.
Yes, and this is where it gets really inspiring.
Okay.
They share some incredibly powerful personal stories like Eric Clapton and Mary Carr, who both struggled with addiction.
Right.
And what's so striking is how they both describe finding solace and willpower through a sense of surrender and faith.
It's almost like connecting to something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
Provided that extra strength and resilience they needed
Absolutely.
to overcome those challenges.
It highlights how having a higher purpose, whether it's religious faith or a deep commitment to a cause, can provide powerful motivation and clarity.
For sure.
It's like that sense of purpose becomes a driving force that fuels our willpower.
It makes me think about those bright lines I discuss in the book.
Right.
It's like setting those clear, unambiguous rules that eliminate those constant internal battles.
Right.
Instead of constantly negotiating with yourself, you have a clear boundary that you've pre-committed to upholding.
That's such a powerful way to frame it. It takes the decision-making out of the equation and minimizes the drain on our willpower.
Right.
It's like setting up those guardrails for our behavior so we're less likely to veer off course.
It's almost like those bright lines provide a sense of structure and certainty that makes it easier to navigate those tempting situations.
Absolutely. And this whole discussion about belief and purpose makes me think about the section on raising children. The book challenges this widespread idea that self-esteem is the key to success. It actually suggests that focusing too much on self-esteem can be counterproductive.
And that was a real surprise for me.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want their kids to feel good about themselves?
Right.
But the book makes a compelling case for why self-control might be even more important for success in life.
What's fascinating is that they present research showing that children with higher levels of self-control tend to do better academically, have better social skills, and are even less likely to engage in risky behaviors later on.
It makes you wonder if we've been focusing on the wrong thing all along.
Right.
Instead of showering kids with praise, maybe we should be equipping them with the tools to regulate their own behavior and make responsible choices.
Exactly. It's about fostering those inner strengths that will serve them well throughout their lives.
Yeah.
And the book doesn't just offer theories.
Right.
It provides concrete examples of how to instill self-control in kids.
Like that example of Nanny Deb, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's definitely got that no-nonsense approach to parenting.
Right.
With clear rules, rewards, and consequences.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's training those little ones to develop their willpower muscles from a young age.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. It highlights how a structured approach to parenting with consistent discipline and clear expectations can be incredibly effective in fostering self-discipline.
Right.
And the research seems to back that up.
This whole section on raising children really made me think about how we approach self-control in general.
Yeah.
It's not just about being strict with ourselves.
Right.
It's about creating that environment that supports our willpower goals.
That's such an important point. We're not just isolated individuals battling temptation.
Right.
We're influenced by our surroundings, our relationships, and even our own internal dialogue.
Right.
The book does a great job of exploring all those different facets of willpower.
And speaking of our internal dialogue, I'm really intrigued by that concept of self-talk.
Oh, yeah.
They discuss. It makes you realize how much power our thoughts have.
Absolutely.
For our actions.
Yeah.
If we're constantly putting ourselves down or telling ourselves we can't resist temptation, it's no wonder we struggle with willpower.
It's like we're setting ourselves up for failure before we even begin.
Right.
But the good news is that we can also use self-talk to our advantage. Okay.
The book emphasizes the power of positive affirmations and consciously choosing more empowering language.
It's about becoming our own internal cheerleaders, right? Instead of saying, I'll never be able to resist that pizza.
Right.
It's about saying, I'm strong and I'm making healthy choices.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset to support our willpower goals. And it's not just about what we say to ourselves, it's about what we choose to focus on.
Okay.
They talk about this fascinating concept called implementation intentions.
Oh, that sounds intriguing. What are implementation intentions?
It's basically about creating those if-then plans for dealing with tempting situations.
Got it.
So instead of just saying, I'm going to resist dessert tonight,
right?
You say, if I'm offered dessert tonight, I'm going to politely decline and order a cup of tea instead.
So it's about having that predetermined plan in place.
Yeah.
So we're not caught off guard in the heat of the moment.
Exactly. It's about anticipating those challenges.
Right. And having a clear course of action that aligns with our willpower goals.
Right.
It's like automating our good behavior so we don't have to rely solely on willpower.
Yeah.
In those crucial moments.
It makes willpower seem less about willpower and more about strategy.
Absolutely.
And it reminds me of another concept from the book, The Importance of Sleep.
Oh, yeah?
They talk about how sleep deprivation can seriously impair our self-control.
It's like our willpower reserves are depleted when we're running on fumes.
That's so true. When we're sleep deprived, it's like our brains are working on autopilot.
Yeah.
And we're more likely to make those impulsive, short-sighted choices.
Right.
It's almost like our willpower battery is drained.
Right.
And we're left with only our primal instincts.
Exactly.
Which probably explains why I'm much more likely to reach for that bag of chips when I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So prioritizing sleep is essentially prioritizing willpower.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating how interconnected all these different aspects of our lives are.
It really is our physical health, our mental state, our environment, our relationships.
Right.
They all play a role in our capacity for self-control.
And one of the most impactful factors, which the book delves into, is our physical environment.
Oh, interesting.
Really, our surroundings can actually impact our willpower.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear more about that.
Well, they talk about how clutter and disorganization can actually deplete our willpower. It's like our brains have to work harder to filter out all those distractions, which leaves us with less mental energy for resisting temptation.
So a messy room could actually make us more likely to give in to those cravings.
That's the idea.
That's interesting. I've definitely noticed that I feel more scattered and less focused when my space is cluttered.
Exactly. It's almost like our mental energy is being sapped by all that visual noise.
Right.
And the book suggests that creating a more organized and streamlined environment can actually boost our self-control.
So a clean desk could lead to a clearer mind and stronger willpower.
That's the idea.
I like the sound of that. And I'm thinking about that saying, outer order, inner calm. Maybe there's some truth to that.
There very well could be. The book even talks about how something as simple as making your bed in the morning can set a positive tone for the day and prime your mind for self-discipline. It's like those small acts of order and control create a ripple effect throughout our lives.
It's almost like setting an intention for the day. I'm definitely going to try that.
Yeah.
But it's not just about decluttering, right? Sure. The book also talks about the importance of exercise in boosting willpower.
And it's not just about the physical benefits of exercise. Right. The research suggests that physical exertion actually has a direct impact on our willpower reserves.
Okay.
It's like working out our mental muscles as well.
So hitting the gym could make us better at resisting those tempting donuts.
That's the idea.
I'm all for that. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
But what about those times when our willpower feels completely depleted? What can we do to replenish those reserves?
The book delves into some really interesting strategies for willpower recovery. Okay. One that I found particularly helpful is the concept of mindfulness and meditation.
Ah, mindfulness. It seems like everyone's talking about mindfulness these days.
It really is a buzzword.
But I have to admit, I'm still a bit fuzzy on what it actually means.
It's essentially about training our minds to be more present and less reactive to those tempting thoughts and cravings. Mm-hmm. The book highlights research showing that mindfulness practices can enhance our self-awareness and improve our ability to regulate our emotions and impulses.
So it's like creating a mental buffer zone between those impulses and our actions.
Exactly.
We're not just blindly reacting to whatever thought or feeling pops up.
It's about cultivating that space between stimulus and response.
Right.
And they even discuss specific meditation techniques that have been shown to be effective in boosting willpower.
That's fascinating. Yeah. It makes meditation seem less like some esoteric practice.
Yeah.
And more like a practical tool for strengthening our self-control.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And, you know, this whole idea of mindfulness connects back to that concept we discussed earlier about self-forgetfulness.
Right.
Sometimes the best way to boost our willpower is to simply shift our focus away from those tempting thoughts and engage in activities that fully absorb us.
It's like giving our willpower a break, right?
Exactly.
We're not constantly battling those internal demons.
Right.
We're simply immersing ourselves in something else entirely.
They share that great example of Henry Morton Stanley, the explorer.
Oh, yeah.
He used his work as a way to escape those negative thoughts and maintain his discipline during those grueling expeditions.
It's almost like he hacked his willpower by finding something so engaging that he transcended those mental battles.
That's a great way to put it, and the book emphasizes that those activities will be different for everyone. You know, it might be painting, playing music, spending time in nature, or losing yourself in a good book.
Right.
It's all about finding those pursuits that light us up and help us to tap into that state of flow.
I love that idea. It makes willpower seem less about deprivation and more about finding those activities that nourish and energize us.
And, you know, this whole discussion about finding activities that make us lose track of time reminds me of another crucial aspect of willpower, having a higher purpose.
We touched on this earlier with the stories of Eric Clapton and Mary Carr.
Right.
But I'm eager to hear more about how a sense of purpose can actually strengthen our self-control.
The book emphasizes that having something bigger than ourselves that we're striving for can be an incredibly powerful motivator.
Okay.
It's like that purpose becomes a guiding star that helps us to stay on track and make choices that are aligned with our values.
It's almost like our willpower is being fueled by something deeper than just our own individual desires. Like those bright lines we talked about, those clear boundaries become much easier to uphold when they're connected to a larger purpose.
Exactly. And they even share some specific strategies for finding our purpose, like reflecting on our values, exploring our interests, and experimenting with different activities. It's a fascinating process of self-discovery.
It makes me think about how willpower isn't just about achieving those external goals.
Right.
It's also about aligning our actions with our deepest values and aspirations.
That's such a powerful insight. It's about living a life that feels meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah.
And that in turn fuels our willpower to make choices that support that vision.
And that makes me wonder about the role of our social connections in all of this.
Yeah.
Do our relationships with others actually impact our willpower?
The book dives into some fascinating research on that very topic.
Okay.
It turns out that our social networks can significantly influence our self-control.
Really?
Both positively and negatively.
So if our friends are all health nuts, we're more likely to adopt healthy habits ourselves.
Well, that's the idea.
And if they're all couch potatoes, we might be more likely to skip the gym.
That's the gist of it.
Wow.
It's like willpower, or the lack thereof, can be contagious. They talk about how behaviors like smoking, drinking, and even healthy eating can spread through social networks.
It's almost like we're unconsciously absorbing the willpower habits of those around us.
Exactly. And the book suggests that being mindful of our social connections
Yeah.
And surrounding ourselves with people who support our goals can be a powerful strategy for boosting our self-control.
It's like building that support system.
Yeah.
That's constantly reinforcing our willpower.
Exactly. And it provides a sense of belonging and shared commitment that can make those willpower challenges feel less daunting.
It makes me think about those accountability partners we discussed earlier.
Right.
Having someone to share our goals with and who can cheer us on can make a huge difference in our ability to stick to those commitments.
Absolutely. And it's not just about having someone to hold us accountable.
Right.
It's also about being inspired by those who embody the qualities we aspire to.
Okay.
The book highlights the power of modeling.
Modeling, you mean like having those role models who inspire us?
Exactly. They emphasize that we're more likely to adopt behaviors that we see others engaging in, especially those we admire and respect.
Right.
So surrounding ourselves with people who embody self-discipline and willpower can actually make us more likely to develop those qualities ourselves.
It's like we're absorbing their willpower wisdom through osmosis.
Right.
And it makes me think about all the stories we consume.
Yeah.
Books, movies, podcasts.
Yeah.
Those stories can have a powerful impact on our beliefs and behaviors.
That's a great connection. The book actually delves into the role of stories in shaping our willpower.
Oh, wow.
They highlight how stories can transmit values and inspire action.
So hearing stories of people who have overcome adversity and achieved great things can motivate us to do the same.
Exactly. And it's not just about those grand heroic tales.
Right.
Even everyday stories of people who have made positive changes in their lives can be incredibly inspiring.
It's like tapping into the collective wisdom of humanity.
Yeah.
And drawing strength from those who have walked the willpower path before us.
Well said. And the book suggests that actively seeking out inspiring stories and reflecting on the lessons they offer can be a powerful way to strengthen our own resolve.
So it's about surrounding ourselves with stories that uplift and empower us.
Absolutely.
And that makes me think about another area where willpower plays a crucial role.
Yeah.
Our finances.
Right.
Our ability to manage impulses and delay gratification has a huge impact on our financial well-being.
That's a great point. The book dedicates a whole section to willpower and money.
Oh, wow.
Exploring how our self-control, or lack thereof, can affect our financial decisions.
I'm really curious to hear about their insights in that area.
Yeah, so much of our financial lives come down to those, like, daily decisions, right?
Right.
Resisting those impulse purchases, sticking to our budgets, and thinking long-term about things like investments and retirement savings.
It all adds up.
It really does, and that's where willpower really comes into play.
Yeah.
They talk about this concept called hyperbolic discounting,
Okay.
which basically means we tend to overvalue immediate gratification, even if it means sacrificing greater rewards down the line.
It's like choosing that fancy latte over adding to our savings account.
Exactly.
We know saving is important, but that instant gratification often wins out.
It does.
It's almost like our brains are wired to prioritize the now over the later.
Exactly. And the book provides some practical strategies for combating this tendency.
Okay.
Things like creating budgets, setting clear financial goals, and even using technology to automate our savings. It's about creating that structure that makes it easier to make those willpower-aligned choices.
Yeah, it takes the emotion out of it, right? Because let's face it, spending money can be very emotionally driven.
It can.
Whether it's that retail therapy after a bad day or that fear of missing out that leads to impulse purchases, our emotions often hijack our best financial intentions.
They do. They delve into the psychology of spending, exploring how our emotions drive so many of our financial decisions.
Right.
And one of the most effective strategies they suggest is implementing cooling off periods.
Oh, like?
Basically waiting a certain amount of time before making a major purchase.
Oh, so it's like hitting the pause button on that impulse, right?
Exactly.
Instead of swiping that credit card immediately, you give yourself a day or two to really consider whether it's a purchase you truly want or need.
Exactly. That cooling off period allows our rational brain to catch up with our emotional brain.
Okay.
It gives us that space to make a more mindful and intentional decision.
It's a great way to avoid those buyer's remorse moments.
It is.
And speaking of mindfulness, the book also talks about the power of willpower rituals.
Oh.
Are they talking about some kind of elaborate ceremony we need to perform before making financial decisions?
Not exactly. It's more about creating those simple routines or actions that help prime our minds for self-control.
Got it.
Think of it like creating a mental cue that signals to your brain, okay, it's time to engage willpower.
So it could be something as simple as taking a few deep breaths before checking out online.
Right.
Or visualizing yourself sticking to your budget at the grocery store.
Exactly. It's about finding those little rituals that work for you. And it makes me think about another powerful tool they discuss.
Yeah.
The power of self-talk.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me of what we were saying earlier about raising children.
Yeah.
If we're constantly telling ourselves we're bad with money,
right,
or that we'll never be able to stick to a budget, it's no wonder we struggle with financial willpower.
Our beliefs about ourselves have a huge impact on our actions. And the good news is we can reframe those beliefs through conscious self-talk.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of saying, I'm terrible at saving, it's about saying, I'm learning to manage my finances and make choices that support my long-term goals.
Right. It's about shifting that inner dialogue to be more encouraging and supportive.
Exactly.
And it's not just about our conscious thoughts, right?
Right.
They also delve into the role of our subconscious minds in shaping our willpower.
That's one of the most fascinating aspects of the book.
Yeah.
They explore how our subconscious beliefs and patterns can influence our behavior even when we're consciously trying to make different choices.
That's interesting.
They even suggest techniques like hypnosis or visualization to help reprogram those subconscious patterns.
So it's like we're going deeper, working on those underlying beliefs that might be sabotaging our willpower.
Exactly. It's a fascinating realm to explore. And you know, this whole discussion about the power of our thoughts and beliefs ties back to one of the most fundamental strategies for strengthening willpower.
Yeah.
Building good habits.
Habits, those automatic behaviors that we do without even thinking.
Right.
They can either be our willpower allies or our willpower enemies.
That's so true if we have a habit of mindlessly scrolling through online shopping sites.
Right.
It's going to take a lot more willpower to resist those impulse purchases.
I'm guilty of that.
But if we can replace that habit with something more supportive, taking a walk or reading a book, we're essentially automating our good behavior.
Right. It's like building those willpower muscles without even realizing it.
Exactly.
They also talk about habit stacking, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where you essentially piggyback a new habit onto an existing one.
Yes. It's a great way to make those new habits stick.
Okay.
Like if you already have a habit of making coffee every morning,
right,
you could add a new habit of writing in your gratitude journal while you're waiting for the coffee to brew. It's like creating that chain reaction of positive behavior.
I like that.
But they also emphasize that we don't have to do this alone, right? They talk about the importance of having those accountability partners.
Yeah.
Or even joining support groups to help us stay on track.
Yeah, that social support can be incredibly powerful.
It's like we're creating that willpower ecosystem that's conducive to growth and success.
Exact.
And it makes me think about another important aspect of our environment that they discuss, the physical spaces we inhabit.
Oh, yeah.
Like we were saying earlier, a cluttered desk could actually be draining our willpower.
It's all interconnected. They talk about how those external cues in our environment can either support or sabotage our self-control.
So if we're constantly bombarded by temptations, whether it's that candy jar on the counter or those notifications popping up on our phones, it's going to take a lot more effort to stay on track.
It will. So creating those willpower hotspots, those environments where we feel more focused and in control, can make a big difference.
So whether it's that cozy corner where we love to read or that quiet spot in nature where we feel most at peace, it's about being intentional about the spaces we inhabit.
Exactly. And they even talk about incorporating visualization techniques into our willpower practice. Visualization, isn't that something athletes use to improve their performance?
Yes. And it turns out that visualization can be just as effective in strengthening willpower.
Really?
The idea is that by vividly imagining ourselves successfully resisting temptation or achieving our goals, we're essentially giving our brains a mental rehearsal.
So if we're tempted to eat that donut, we could visualize ourselves choosing a healthier snack instead.
Right.
Really imagining the taste and feeling of satisfaction that comes with making that willpower-aligned choice.
Exactly. It's about creating that mental blueprint for success, and they even suggest combining visualization with positive affirmations.
Oh, wow.
So while you're visualizing yourself making those healthy choices, you could repeat to yourself, I'm strong, I'm in control, I'm making choices that support my well-being.
Well, it's like giving ourselves a double dose of willpower.
It is.
But even with all these strategies, there are going to be times when our willpower falters. Right?
Right.
What did they say about dealing with those inevitable setbacks?
That's where self-compassion comes in. They emphasize that beating ourselves up when we slip up is actually counterproductive.
Yeah, I can see that.
It just makes us feel worse and less likely to get back on track.
So instead of that negative self-talk,
right,
it's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a good friend.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all human, we all make mistakes,
Right.
and those setbacks are just part of the journey.
For sure.
They even suggest specific self-compassion practices.
Okay.
Like challenging that negative self-talk and reminding ourselves that we're worthy of love and forgiveness, even when we mess up.
That's such an important reminder. We tend to be our own harshest critics.
We do.
But if we can cultivate that self-compassion, it creates a more supportive inner environment.
Yeah.
Making us more resilient in the face of those willpower challenges.
And you know, this whole idea of self-compassion connects to another important concept they discuss.
Okay.
Forgiveness. Not just forgiving ourselves for those slip-ups, but also forgiving others who might have undermined our willpower or led us astray.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
That's a powerful concept. It's not about condoning the behavior or forgetting what happened.
Right.
It's about releasing those negative emotions that can weigh us down and deplete our willpower.
Exactly. It's about freeing up that mental and emotional energy so we can focus on moving forward in a positive direction.
And that brings us back to one of the most essential themes of the book.
Yeah.
The importance of meaning and purpose.
Having that sense of something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
That guiding star that gives our lives direction and makes those willpower challenges feel more worthwhile.
And they emphasize that finding our purpose doesn't have to be this grand, life-altering event.
Right.
It can be as simple as connecting to our values.
Yeah.
Exploring our interests and finding those activities that bring us joy and make us feel truly alive.
It's about creating a life that feels aligned with who we are at our core.
Right.
And that sense of purpose can fuel our willpower in all areas of our lives.
And that makes me think about our connections.
Yes.
You know, we talked earlier about how our social networks can impact our willpower. But it goes deeper than that, doesn't it? It's about cultivating those relationships that nourish us, that make us feel supported and loved.
Those connections give us strength and resilience, reminding us that we're not alone in those willpower struggles.
That's so true.
And it makes me think about another important aspect of self-care that they discuss.
Okay.
The importance of setting realistic goals.
That's something I definitely struggle with.
Right.
I tend to get overly ambitious, trying to change too many things at once.
Right.
Which usually leads to burnout and feeling defeated.
They emphasize that willpower, like any muscle, needs to be trained gradually.
Right.
Trying to do too much too soon can backfire, leaving us feeling depleted and discouraged.
So it's about setting those smaller, more achievable goals and celebrating those wins along the way.
Exactly.
It's about building that momentum and creating that positive feedback loop.
Absolutely. This has been such an incredible deep dive into the world of willpower.
It really has.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how it works, the factors that influence it, and most importantly, the practical strategies we can use to strengthen it.
It's like we've been given a glimpse into the control panel of our minds.
Yeah.
Realizing that we have more power over our choices and actions than we might have thought.
And that's the true beauty of this whole concept of willpower.
Right.
It reminds us that we're not just passive passengers in our own lives.
Yeah.
We have the ability to choose our course, navigate those challenges, and create the lives we truly desire.
It's been an inspiring journey.
It really has.
And dear listener, as you continue on your own willpower journey, remember this, you're not alone. We're all in this together.
Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and never underestimate your own capacity for growth and self-mastery.
Until next time, keep diving deep.